Hi, I'm James Barfield with your Urban Connection. Remember, this is the channel that is often imitated, but is never duplicated. We talk about things that others won't touch. And today is no different. So I'm going to welcome my guest, Sedgwick County Sheriff Jeff Easter. Welcome to the show, Mr. Easter.
Thank you, Mr. Barfield. I appreciate it.
Okay, we're going to cut right to the chase here. And I want to talk about a little bit about what's been going on lately that's in the news about the leaked text messages.
Mhm.
And I want to talk about something that basically I've really not heard anybody else focusing on. And it was, to me, out of everything that I've heard, this was the biggest surprise to me. And that is that at least one member of the Wichita Police Department and one former member of the sheriff's office were or are members of the Three Percenters, which has been designated by Canadian officials as a militia group and a terrorist organization. These guys' main goal is to take arms against the government, including police officers, as we saw on January the 6th at the nation's capital, when former military members and former and current police officers were attacking other law enforcement officers. Now, I don't know if that comes as a surprise or shock to you, but Sheriff, and I want to be transparent here. I am a member of the Sheriff's Office Community Advisory Board, and we've talked in the past about certain hate members and certain hate group members being infiltrating law enforcement. And so I was very much surprised to see that we had those kinds of officers in our departments here in the city and in the county. Can you comment on that, sir?
So, as you know, Mr. Barfield, there was a series of very racially charged, racist memes, texts, homophobic, and women degrading memes that we discovered. Through that investigation, we discovered the memes, we discovered the texts, those type of things. That was our main focus on our deputies. And there was a couple of memes in there as well that we looked at, but because we were going to be terminating them for the totality of everything, that's what we did. They were not going to be employees here any longer. I read in the same article about the Three Percenters. We've went back and kind of looked at that. Yeah, they exchanged a meme in reference to that. I don't know if that's their opinion. I don't know if that's how they actually feel, if they've actually acted upon it. I can tell you from the one individual that was sent to, because of Brady Giglio, we had to go back through every case he's been involved in to see if there was any type of racism involved in those particular cases. That was done in conjunction with the DA's office and some retired judges that combed through every one of the cases that he'd been involved in. For the most part, he'd been off the streets for a while, so he didn't really have any new cases, but they had to go through prior convictions as well of any cases that he was involved in to see if there was any impropriety there whatsoever. And so in reference to the 3%, we had discussions on that. And there was another meme that had a Confederate flag and a Jesus holding a machine gun, those type of things. And so, again, that was that one particular individual that had those things. The one with the Jesus one and the Confederate flag, that was between two people, both of which don't work here anymore. And, we're not seeing that they acted upon those acts in their previous cases that were done by a separate party through the DA's office and the two judges that were hired that were retired to go through their cases.
Okay, here's, I guess, my concern, I'll put it that way. When you have, and usually now, you might agree, you might not agree with me, but usually when you have, how many sheriff's deputies do you have that are on the street?
178 commissioned deputies.
Okay, so usually, sir, when you have a sizable number of officers or deputies or whatever you want to call them, and you find that you have one known member of a, I don't want to say gang, but a hate group or a terrorist group or whatever, there's a good chance there's some others that you haven't discovered. Would you not agree with that?
Yeah, I can't say they're a member. I know that that they have done this one meme about it. Does it say that they're a membership, or does it say that they believe in their ideology? Those type of things, or it's their opinion. So I can't confirm whether or not they're members, but they're sharing memes in reference to what would be considered a hate group. To answer your question, yeah, that's what we have started taking, through training, through discussions with department members, those type of things. That's the course that we're taking, because, I would agree with you, if there, in most cases, if there's one person that's doing something, there's probably more than one. And so I'm not so ignorant to say that, oh yeah, we cleared this one person out, it's done. No, it's an ongoing process, because we also have to do that for folks that are coming into law enforcement. Those are things that we go through to ensure that we're not hiring somebody that's a member or believes in, the Ku Klux Klan or other hate groups.
Well,
We have no room for them in law enforcement.
so let me ask you, the lieutenant, I believe it was, from your department that was, maybe I misread the paper, I'm not sure, but I thought I read that they had admitted that they were members of the 3%ers. I might be wrong. But anyhow, how long had this officer been on the force? As I understand, this is a long-term employee, or had been a long-term employee.
He'd been with us for 27 years.
Okay. So
And the
here's
paper, I don't know if the paper said he actually belonged or not, but our investigation didn't reveal that he belonged to any hate group.
okay. Here's my problem. You just mentioned training. And I think you've heard me say before that, a lot of people, the first thing that comes out of their mouth when there's this kind of a situation, they talk about training. I'm not convinced training is the answer. This guy you talk about has been on the force for 26 years. Okay. Now, I don't know how long he's been involved with this kind of activity, but certainly he knows he wasn't trained to do the things he did. He knows those things are violation of your policy. Okay. So all the training in the world is not going to do anything for a rogue officer who wants to do it his way. Okay. Training is not going to help him one single bit, because he's got his mind made up what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. And I referenced the fact that they're saying that, hey, and I can't say attribute this to your officer, your deputy, but they're saying, hey, we don't get to shoot and kill people often enough. Okay. And we permanently de-escalated somebody that needed to be permanently de-escalated. I know damn well that's not what you teach, and that's not how you train your officers.
That would be correct.
Okay, so but I wanted to get that out of the way because that's a concern of mine. Because with me, that's a red flag. Okay, and I'll tell you this, Sheriff, if I would have told you a month ago that this guy was considered to be involved with that group, you would not have believed it.
I mean, if you had evidence to show us, or a meme or something like, we would have absolutely investigated it. To say that I wouldn't believe you, I've been doing this for 32 years. I've seen a lot, and to say that no, I don't believe that whatsoever. I'm not sure I would actually ever say that at this point in my career, just because we hire individuals, we hire people that are people, and all the screening that we put them through. They don't really go through any other screening after that they're here. We try to screen them beforehand, but even some of those people fly under the radar and become cops. And then we find out about them because of something that they did wrong. And I'm not trying to downplay this at all, but that's like that everywhere in business and in law enforcement and EMS and government work, private work. I mean, unfortunately, you have people that do fly under the radar for nefarious means and can make it on. And so what we have to do is ensure that we have good screening processes, that we discuss this openly with our deputies, not just out in the field, but also in the jail, because we're all one department, and saying these are the things that aren't going to be tolerated. And we've had those discussions. Just like when people ask me, well, what training do you give for folks that have committed crimes? What training is there to give? I mean, it's a crime. You're not supposed to do that, whether you're a cop or not. So we're going to fire you for it. And I kind of view this the same way. If you're going to espouse racist type things or be even considered a member of a hate crime or a hate group, then you don't belong here wearing this uniform. And unfortunately, we don't know about a lot of that stuff until it happens.
Right. So let me ask you this, without getting into the personnel issue, was there anything in his file or background that might have been a red flag to you previously, or had there been any misconduct on this officer's part?
The one officer, there's nothing in his background that leads to any of this stuff with the racial, those type of things. With some of the recent issues that he was having, he had been suspended from here based upon some criminal activity. When this was discovered about the memes, that's how this was discovered, because of his criminal activity. The other two, there was nothing in their backgrounds either, as far as from their screening, any type of prior discipline for these type of things. There was nothing in their files like that.
Okay. Let's move on, and let's just now talk about the whole issue itself and how you came to find out about this. And I know what action you took afterwards, but tell us basically how you found out about this and when you found out about it in the beginning.
Okay. So most of this is in the paper at this point. No necessarily timeline has been put out in the paper. Hold on here just a second. I want to make dang sure I can comment on the, I think I can, but I want to make sure. Okay. So basically what happened is a individual from the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office was arrested for stalking, a domestic violence charge. The Wichita Police Department conducted a search warrant on his phone in relation to that criminal charge. They then located some memes and some texts that, as I said before, were racist in nature and homophobic in nature and women degrading. A deputy chief from the police department brought that information to us on May 18th. My understanding is on May 8th is when they extracted the information from the phone. I then looked at it and brought together an executive staff plus our lawyer who works for the sheriff's office. We reviewed those particular texts and memes. The one individual that was extracted from his phone was already on suspension. The other two supervisors we brought in and suspended them immediately. I then, along with our lawyer, took that information directly over to the district attorney's office, because the issue is this is all discoverable at that point. And Brady and not to get into big description of Brady and Giglio, but Brady's the state side, Giglio's the federal side. And so what happened, what that requires us to do in law enforcement, just like the police department has the requirement when they saw it, either to bring it to the DA or bring it to us to do the investigation and then turn it over. And so that same day, we took all that information to the DA and said, these are the three that are involved. I don't know what cases that they're working on, they're witnesses on at this point, but you need to be aware of this, because they got to go through then a whole process on their end in ensuring that defense attorneys and stuff like that know about this. That's their obligation as well. DA immediately said, yeah, this is Brady Giglio information. We started our investigation from that point. Colonel White, who is an undersheriff here, I had him do the investigation and not PSU because of Brian's experience, just like mine, in Brady Giglio areas. And not only that, this was a high level investigation. So I wanted it done by a colonel instead of another lieutenant or a sergeant down in PSU. So that's where it was elevated to. The DA gave us the letter back saying that this is a Brady Giglio violation. We have specific Brady Giglio policies and regulations, which says if you can't give credible testimony in court of law, you're going to be terminated. At the same time, I asked the Wichita Police Department to give me the entire extraction from the phone so I could go through it all to see if any other deputies were involved in any type of activity like this. As I was going through that extraction, I found some disturbing memes and texts that were created by the Wichita Police Department, specifically within their SWAT team. So I took that information back over to the chief and to Jose Salcido, Colonel White, and our attorney was with us as well. And I said, hey, you're going to have to look into this because you got similar type issues. The chief was very surprised by that. Obviously, they hadn't gone through everything. They found this stuff. And then they also, the texts and stuff between the boyfriend, girlfriend involved in this, they'd found, but they'd also found this stuff. And I don't know how they found it, but I know you can put in keywords into this. I don't want to call it a website. It's an extraction. And so you can put keywords into that, which then will pop up if they show up anywhere. So I'm assuming, shooting, those type of things was probably put in there in reference to the DV. And this is what popped up because of that meme. And so I gave it back to them on May 25th. And then we proceeded to go down our path. And I don't know if you want me to explain any more on that, but we proceeded down our path where these folks were suspended the entire time. And then, I can't control retirements. That's not through the county, that's through the state. 2 of them retired. 1 of them resigned 2 days after he was served with notice of investigation. So only 2 of the 3 were interviewed by Colonel White.
Okay, so what I'm gathering from what you're telling me is that you first received the information on May the 18th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it was your knowledge that this was discovered by the Wichita PD on May the 8th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, so at that time, you didn't know you knew that there were some problems, but you didn't know the severity of the problems. Is that my understanding?
On May 18th, I did, because they brought over a letter telling us, what they found and that this needed to be investigated, or they turn it over to the DA's office along with the memes. We then was able to get a thumb drive that showed this. They're called threads. So the thread between these 3 supervisors, we were able to look at that entire thread because it wasn't all done on one day. It was different days. They'd send stuff to each other. And again, like I said, after we discovered that, we suspended them and went straight to the DA's office with printout copies of what we had discovered.
Okay. So now you gave it back, what you'd received from the WPD, you gave it back to them on May the 25th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But you had went to the DA's office prior to returning that to the WPD.
I went to the district attorney's office May 18th as well, the same day that we received our stuff. And then it took me 4 very long days to go through that entire extraction to ensure that if I had other deputies that did this, then I got to do the same thing. I didn't see any other deputies that did this, but I saw some PD memes and texts that I felt that the PD, if they didn't know about it, to do the same thing they did with me, is provide them that information to say, hey, you might have some issues here as well, based upon those texts and memes. And then I don't know what happened after that. With their stuff.
Okay. Now, as I made mention, I'm on the advisory board for the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office.
Mm-hmm.
We were told limited information about what this was all about.
Mhm.
Was there anything that prevented you from being completely transparent and open with us at that time?
No, there was two separate times that in those meetings, I said that you're going to see, the first one was you're going to see where folks were retired and resigned, but they would have been terminated if they hadn't done that for very racist, homophobic, and women degrading memes. And then the next time, they're actually on the sheet that shows that we did this investigation. That was repeated again. The very content of it, of the Elmer Fudd meme, and some of the other memes that were in there, that content was not specifically given to you. I will tell you, there's nothing that prevents me from actually telling you what the content was. I'll be honest with you, James, usually you are full of questions. I thought you were going to ask some questions, but the fact of the matter is that, on something like this, should we have maybe described those? Looking back on it, yes, we should have.
I would have felt much better if you had.
Yeah.
Yes, I asked a lot of questions, but I'm also an adult. I can handle any situation that I'm confronted with, but
Mhm.
I just, to me, I would have felt better if you had just laid it all on the table and said, hey, this is what we're dealing with. Okay. But we are dealing with it.
Yeah, and part of the problem with that is, because we discussed that, laying just the memes in front of you and saying, this is what it is. Part of the problem with that is that our own personnel don't know that. It's coming out of an internal affairs investigation. And that was our discussions of, okay, if we tell them about it, does that make it open to the public? Which then all of our personnel knew was that same thing I told you, that they're racist, homophobic, blah, blah, blah. And because it caused quite the stir here. I'm not going to kid you about that. We had people picking sides, and there was this First Amendment because they knew something happened, but they didn't know it in detail until the paper put it in detail.
Right.
And so that was part of our discussions on exactly how to handle this. And so that's why I chose to handle it by saying the same thing I told our deputies.
Well, the only problem with that, sir, is that from my standpoint, and I'm sure for other members of the advisory group, we would rather hear it from you than hear it through the news media.
No, I'm with you. And we've had those discussions since then. And that's something that we looked at and said, it's the first time we've ever confronted something like this. And will there be lessons learned? Yep, this will be one of them. The other one is that, the CRB board, or not CRB, but Civil Service Policy Board, they get all of our discipline and they get what it is, unless people resign or retire. And we don't give discipline because they're gone. We still sustain them. We still turn it over to C-Post, all that other stuff that we have to do. But we're going to change that as well. We have a Civil Service Board meeting, I think next week. In 2 weeks, I'm going to propose that these type of issues, because this isn't the first time that someone's resigned under investigation.
Sure.
That we continue our investigation, we sustain it, but we close it because they don't work here anymore. So those type of investigations will also go to the Civil Service Board so that they can see the totality of what it is that we investigated.
So as it stands right now, let me make sure I completely understand what you're saying and what your position is. As it stands right now, there is no investigation going on concerning any of the 3 sheriff's deputies that were involved in this situation. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The investigation ended September of last year, 2021.
Okay. So as a result of that, there will not be these officers who retired and one resigned. They will face no consequences for what they did. Is that correct?
Well, they can through C-Post. They can lose their licenses, which means they can't be cops here in the state of Kansas.
Okay.
But as far as being able to terminate them, give them days off, those type of things, when they leave here, there's nothing I can do at that point other than say it was sustained and this is the outcome of the investigation, and this was what discipline would have been given to them if they were still here, which would have been termination. But all of that stuff, every last bit of that investigation on all three of them is turned over to C-Post because they have to do an independent investigation into it as far as their licenses.
Okay.
And that's
so-
by state law that we have to turn that stuff over.
Sure. Okay, so let me ask you this. Other than Brady Gigolo, was there any reason for you to necessarily turn over your information that you'd received to the district attorney?
Well, I mean, on this particular item, yeah, it's race-based, which is a Brady Giglio issue. And so that has to be turned over to him.
Okay, but I'm saying without, other than the Brady Gigolo issue, in other words, what I'm saying is, would you, under normal circumstances, turn that over to the DA to look into possibly filing criminal charges?
On this particular case, it doesn't rise to a criminal charge. And so I guess the answer would be no, because there's not a criminal charge. The fact of the matter is there's a list of items that has to be turned over to the DA's office if any one of those things are a possibility that the folks did under Brady Giglio. And so there's a list of them, and we follow that list. If someone's lied, we turn it over. If someone is, criminal wise, we turn it over. If they're being deceitful, we turn it over. If it's race based, we turn it over. Doesn't mean that there are criminal charges to come out of it, because this is a whole separate issue than criminal. But these things here are appalling, but they don't rise to any state statute that they could be charged criminally with.
Okay, all right, that's what I was wanting to get a good straight answer on, because I have talked with the well, it's public, talked with the interim chief of police about this very thing, and of course he has suggested that they had to prove discrimination. Well, from my standpoint, when you have someone with the thought process, someone that is or certainly believes in, even if they're not a member, but if they believe in the principles of the 3%ers, and then they conduct themselves in this manner, sir, I mean, there you go. If you act like a duck, and walk like a duck, and talk like a duck, hey, it's a duck.
I agree, but there has to be an act that's involved in that. So were they discriminatory in the way that they did car stops? Were they discriminatory in the way they wrote affidavits? Were they discriminatory in their job duties that could be proven? I can tell you with our three folks, that was taken into consideration by those retired judges. That's why he hired independent retired judges to say, was there any discriminatory practices that were involved in this? Because just having those memes and saying what you want, in your opinion, does not make that criminal. But if there's an act plus what they're saying, then that could be criminal. There was nothing there that we could say was criminal because of the act.
Okay, let me ask you this. Had any of your deputies been involved in deadly shootings?
One of them had, yes.
Okay. Would that be the one that is under consideration by me anyhow, for being a member of the 3%ers?
Yeah, the two shootings that one deputy was involved in, they are white individuals that are involved in that. And in both of those cases, I'm sorry, one is white, the other one is African-American, but I had put this out before. The deputy that was involved in that did not shoot him. It was a combination of other police officers and sheriff's deputies that were there. The other one, I mean, he was shooting at the DCF building and shooting at traffic. I mean, it was a lawful act that he performed.
Okay. Now, are you free to talk at all about the Sedgwick Laughlin case now?
No.
Not free to talk about that.
It's going to
Well,
be pending litigation, James. And so our involvement in that is very little. And obviously there's a task force. They haven't asked me to come in there yet, but I'm anticipating that they will. In the task force, if there's additional information, then I'll be able to provide it then. But right now, we're not making any comments on that because there's pending in litigation. So
Do you want to mention that we didn't have any staff members there?
do what?
We didn't have any sheriff's deputies involved in that.
Oh, yeah. As I would think, we didn't, those folks don't work for the sheriff's office. So we have no sheriff personnel involved in any of this stuff, except for some original interviews of individuals involved.
okay, but doesn't that facility come under the jurisdiction of the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office?
No, it does not.
It does not.
No, that's strictly county. We have nothing to do with juvenile incarceration.
Okay, all right.
Unless they're adjudicated, then they come to us over here. But that is a separate entity that is under public safety, which is the public safety director is Rusty Leeds.
Okay. And the sheriff's office had nothing to do with the decision whether or not to take this young man to a hospital or to jail. Is that correct? Is that what
That's
you're saying?
correct. We had nothing to do with that. We weren't. Yeah, no, we did not.
Okay. Okay. All right, sir. Is there anything else you want to tell us regarding your position on either one of those two cases?
Yeah, the thing is that I've talked to you before, and I'll put it out there again for the other folks that couldn't make it. Hey, we don't condone that activity. Yes, we addressed it when we found out about it. Is there some other things that we need to do internally to hopefully ensure that it doesn't happen again? Yes, we're working on those now. And I understand what you're saying about training, but the only way we can really, we can't go out and say, well, because you work for this person, you're also a racist. It doesn't work that way. We have to have evidence that they have displayed some type of discrimination or racist type attitudes or those type of things. So the best thing that we can do is bring in other training that talks about cultural diversity. We did some training last year on duty to intervene, and also what was the other training? I can't remember now. Duty to intervene, and it had to do with use of force type stuff. And so because those are two really hot topics right now as well. And so we're looking to do the same thing now with cultural diversity and those type of things. Last year, because of COVID, we couldn't bring in speakers. So we have two different groups or entities that we've reached out to provide training to the entire sheriff's office, not just the commission side. Because remember, we're allotted 300 employees in the jail. So the majority of our employees are in the jail, and they are under the same circumstances as everybody else, and we have to make sure that they're trained properly as well. But again, if there's other groups that want me to come out and talk to them and assure them that, hey, we don't tolerate this stuff. These are the things that we're putting in place to hopefully eradicate if we have other individuals that believe this way. I'd be more than happy to, because this is something that it's appalling and we don't agree with. And we are not going to succumb to folks that do this kind of activity without terminating them, being honest with you.
Okay, I have two questions and I'll be finished with. The first question is, in your training, are you guys intensifying the efforts to de-escalate?
Yeah, that was actually the other one. So I'm glad you said the right term. So we did duty to intervene and de-escalation training for the department last year.
Okay, so now here's my follow-on. And this is not really a question, it's a comment that I want you to make. And this is the same comment that I put to Interim Chief Moore. I would like for you to look into the camera and tell any individual that is watching this video why they should consider becoming a Sedgwick County Sheriff's Deputy.
All right. Well, first off, I know that events around the nation have taken place over the last couple of years that have eroded the trust in law enforcement. I can tell you within the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office, we have a lot of good people that do the job the right way every day. Is there folks that make mistakes that we have to discipline? Yes. Is there folks that make career changing mistakes that they no longer work here? Yes. But there are times when law enforcement needs to change as well. And if they want to be a part of that change, then they need to join the sheriff's office, because that's things that we look at all the time, is how do we change the delivery of our services? How do we change the way that we incarcerate people, and the different programs that we've started within the jail, in hopes that when these folks get out, it gives them the opportunity to get jobs, a better education, and assimilate themselves back in to society. That's what we're about. I think that our mission, says it all. We hold all accountable, including ourselves. And so we have a track record of that. And we're a very professional sheriff's office that's respected throughout the state of Kansas. And you'd be joining a team that we absolutely are a team, and we're a family. And we, when folks are in need, we have a lot of people that, houses have been burnt down, tornadoes have taken out their homes, those type of things. We rally around those folks to make sure that they have what they need to survive. And that's what we do at the sheriff's office.
Finally, do you have plans to increase the number of African American and female deputies?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had those plans for years. It's trying to get people to apply is the problem. We're very diverse inside the facility. We're not so diverse out in the field.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for taking out the time to join me for this video today, and I appreciate it. And I'm sure you probably will hear from some members of the community. And if I see that there is a sufficient need to have you come before another group, I'll be happy to do that, sir.
Yep, I appreciate it, sir. You have a
Thank you
great
very
day.
much. You too. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.